Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Hartford Steam Boiler, or HSB, webinar. My name is Katie, and I will be your Global Spec moderator. Now let me introduce today's presenter. With us today, we have Dean Martin. Dean is the Carriage of Dangerous Goods Technical Manager with HSB. Dean, welcome to today's event, and with that, I'd like to pass things over to you to get us started.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. A synergistic approach to transportable pressure equipment regulations across the international markets. In this session, we'll explore how key regulations, including ADR, RID, IMDG, ADN, TPED, the UK TPE regulations, and US DOT, and how they intersect, where complexity arises, and how a coordinated approach can help manufacturers, operators, or owners of TPE and help navigate the global compliance landscape efficiently and safely. We'll also look at practical strategies to harmonize processes across regions, so regulatory compliance becomes an enabler and not a barrier. My name is Dean Martin, and I'm your presenter for today. I'm the Carriage of Dangerous Goods Technical Manager at Hartford Steam Boiler. I'm a chartered engineer and a member of the Weldon Institute. I specialise in the technical compliance of transportable pressure equipment and carriage of dangerous goods. And over the past 10 years, my work has focused on inspection, certification, and general regulatory compliance for transportable pressure equipment, such as portable tanks, tank containers, multi-element gas containers, MEGCs, battery vehicles, along with pressure receptacles and other cryogenic equipment. My expertise lies within the full range of regulations, understanding how they overlap, and applying them effectively in the real world. I'm also actively involved in shaping international standards. I sit on BSI Technical Group AUA18, which focuses on tanks for the transport of dangerous goods, BSI Technical Group B52512 for the design of offshore structures, CEN TC296 Working Group 5, which governs tank testing, inspection and marking, and ISO TC67 SC7 Working Group 11, which addresses the requirements for offshore freight containers. This committee work keeps me closely connected to emerging regulatory changes and best practices in design, testing and inspection. As well, I attend all of the UK inspection body groups and European notified body meetings. My focus for today is to share some practical, technical perspective on how these regulations link together, where the complexities lie, and how manufacturers, operators, or owners of transport pressure equipment can navigate global compliance effectively. Hartford Steam Boiler, or HSB, was established in 1866, giving us over 150 years of experience in inspection, testing, certification, and risk management. Over that time, HSB has grown into a truly global organisation, and today we are the largest ASME authorised inspection agency worldwide, with design offices in India, Ireland, the United States and Japan. HSB also acts as a notified body for TPED, PED, and an approved body for PESR, as well as an appointed body for UK TPE regulations, providing inspection and certification services that meet global regulatory requirements. Our work spans the full range of transportable pressure equipment and the carriage of dangerous goods, ensuring that equipment can be safely and legally operated across multiple jurisdictions. We hold accreditation for ISO 9001, 14001 and 45001, which demonstrates our commitment to quality, environmental responsibility, and health and safety management across all operations. Our global team of highly trained engineers and inspectors help manufacturers navigate regulations efficiently, reducing risk, and support operational continuity. Beyond inspection, HSB plays an active role in contributing to international standards, code updates, and delivering technical training to all our customers. This ensures that our clients do not only comply with the current regulations, but also benefit from the latest industry best practices, enabling safe, compliant operations across all markets worldwide. HSB operates on a global scale with over 420 inspection personnel worldwide in 18 offices across North America, South America, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. This global footprint allows HSB to deliver inspections and certification consistently. Our teams combine technical expertise with knowledge of regional requirements, helping clients manage complex requirements effectively. By providing a coordinated approach across different regions, HSB ensures that equipment can move smoothly and compliantly between markets. Clients benefit from our high-quality compliance support, whether it's a tank container in Europe, a portable tank in Asia, or a cryogenic pressure receptacle in the Middle East. Our worldwide presence enables organizations to operate with confidence, maintain safety and regulatory compliance without unnecessary delays or disruptions. In this presentation, we'll focus on several key areas. First, an overview of TPE and what sets us apart. Next, the global frameworks that guide industry standards, followed by a look at global industry and the local challenges companies face in different markets. We'll also explore the cost of regulatory fragmentation, why synergy matters, and how working with one partner with global reach can transform complexity into opportunity. Finally, we'll examine how TPE enables a borderless advantage, helping your business thrive across markets without unnecessary friction. And by the end of the session, our goal is for you to have a clear understanding of how TPE combines global expertise with local insight to create actionable solutions that drive growth everywhere in the world. So what is transportable pressure equipment and what is included? TPE refers to equipment such as pressure receptacles, including cylinders, tubes, pressure drums, and tanks, MEGCs, battery vehicles, and its service equipment enclosures, which are designed for the transport of hazardous substances ranging from classes 1 to 9 by road, rail, sea, or inland waterways. These are governed by the regulations such as ADR, RID, ADN, IMDG, or for the US market, US DOT. Such equipment requires strict conformity assessment procedures, including type approval, initial inspection and test, supervision of manufacture, in-service inspection, to ensure overall safety and free movement across markets. It covers new and existing equipment, including design, manufacture, inspection and testing, and specific marking requirements. In addition, for the EU or the UK markets, transportable pressure equipment containing Class 2 gases is subject to TPD and UK TPER, which introduces further requirements involving notified body and UK appointed body. These include specific marking obligations such as the PI mark for TPD and the RO mark for TPER. It also includes transitional provisions and rules governing the recognition of equivalence. All of these requirements are managed under the close supervision of HSB. And for further information on this and for some clear definitions, this can be found in ADR RID IMDG section 1.2.1. Having defined what we mean by transportable pressure equipment, the next area to explore is the global regulatory framework that governs it, and why complexity persists despite widespread claims of harmonization. At the highest level, the foundation for all dangerous goods transport regulations is the UN Model Regulations, These provide globally recognized technical baseline, setting out classification criteria, packaging instructions, tank provisions, labeling, and design, inspection, and testing requirements. The UN model is intended to promote consistency, harmonization, and enable international trade. However, the UN model regulations are not law. They are a recommendation framework. To become legally enforceable, the UN model is implemented through the model regulations. These include ADR for road, RID for rail, and ADN for inland waterways. IMDG and USDOT also follow this blueprint. While these frameworks are closely aligned with the UN model, they are separate legal instruments, each with their own structure, scope, and enforcement mechanisms. A critical distinction is that ADR, RID, and ADN are binded to their own contracting parties. Once adopted, they become enforceable law within the jurisdictions. This is where the divergence begins. Although the technical text is largely harmonized, regional and national deviations still exist. Individual countries may apply additional requirements related to the approval bodies, inspection practices, documentation, language, or operational controls. And in practice, this means that compliance in one country does not automatically guarantee acceptance in another. Importantly, within the countries of the contracting parties, ADR, RID, ADN always takes precedence over national rules for international carriage. But national authorities still influence how ADR, RID, and ADN is interpreted, applied, and enforced in their own rules. As a result, the regulatory landscape is not a level playing field. This combination of global alignment and local interpretation creates a regulatory environment that is consistent in principle but fragmented in execution. And this is a key reason why compliance remains complex, costly, and operationally challenging for the global operators. While international framework for the transport of dangerous goods are broadly aligned through the UN model regulations, regional regulatory requirements continue to create material differences that directly affect cost, timelines, and market access. In the European Union, transportable pressure equipment is regulated under ADR and TPD, with a conformity demonstrated by the PI mark. This provides a clear and efficient route to the market, enabling compliant equipment to circulate freely across the UN member states within a well-established and harmonized system. In contrast, the UK post-Brexit framework has introduced additional complexities for manufacturers, owners, and operators. Equipment placed on the GB market must now carry the row mark, with defined cut-off dates governing the continued use of legacy EU approvals. Since the 1st of Jan 2023, PI-marked equipment is no longer recognised in Great Britain, and in some cases, equipment has been stopped at the GB borders, meaning that dual certification is required for equipment intended for the use in both EU and UK. This change has increased both compliance costs and administrative burden for businesses operating across the EU and UK market. The United States adopts a different approach again. Under PIMSA, certain EU-approved pressure equipment may be accepted, such as UN cylinders, UN portable tanks, or PI-marked equipment, but only under specific conditions relating to the design codes, inspection arrangements, and approval pathways. As a result, the EU conformity alone does not provide guaranteed or unrestricted access to the US market, requiring early planning and careful regulatory strategy. An example of this, if a customer wants to transport oxygen gas in a UN pressure receptacle from Ireland to the US, the UN pressure receptacle will be certified to ADR, RID requirements and bear the PI mark to TPD, and the country of approval is Ireland. In accordance with US DOT Section 171.23 requirements, the customer can transport the UN receptacle filled to the end location in US and discharged. However, it would have to return to Ireland empty. If the UN pressure receptacle was both PI marked and approved to the US DOT requirements with a country of approval USA, then there would be less restrictions on the use of the UN pressure receptacle, such as being filled and discharged within the US. Row-marked equipment is currently not recognised by the US DOT, which means then the UN receptacle would have to bear the UK row mark, the EU PI mark, and approved to US DOT requirements with a country of approval USA. These examples highlight why regulatory systems that are often described as almost aligned can still result in significant commercial disruption. Minor differences in marking, recognition, or approval requirements can be enough to delay projects, restrict market access, or require costly rework. Even limited regulatory divergence can therefore have a direct and immediate impact on supply chains, delivery schedules, and commercial commitments. Regulatory differences create commercial risk. HSB helps organisations navigate globally early, reducing costs, delay, and uncertainty. While national frameworks like ADR-RID exist, they only apply to contracting parties that have formally signed up to those agreements. There are 54 contracting parties in total for ADR and 45 in total for RID. This information can be found within the introduction of the regulations. Outside those countries, there is no obligation to apply ADR or RID, even though the same goods and equipment may still be moving through the global supply chains. Countries such as the US, Australia, and New Zealand operate under their own national regulations. In some cases, ADR or RID may be used as a technical reference, but it's important to understand that this is not the same as legal recognition. Unless the equipment is being used within the contracting state, those requirements are not mandated by law. This is where transportable pressure equipment becomes particularly important. TPE sits right at the centre of global trade. It's designed to move repeatedly across borders, between countries, and across different modes of transport. Within the European Union, TPD provides a clear framework that supports free movement of compliant equipment across member states. But once that equipment leaves the EU, acceptance depends entirely on the local regulatory recognition. So although the industry itself is global, the regulatory environment is highly fragmented. Understanding where international rules apply and where local rules take over is crucial to ensure equipment can be used legally, efficiently, and without disruption. HSB helps businesses navigate these complexities. We provide guidance on regional and global regulatory requirements, certification strategies, and compliance pathways, helping ensure that TPE is legally accepted wherever it's put into service. By leveraging HSB's expertise, companies can reduce the risk of border delays, avoid costly rework, and maintain uninterrupted movement of their equipment across multiple markets. Although global regulatory frameworks are broadly aligned, the real impact of regulatory fragmentation is felt in day-to-day operations, and is often more significant than organisations expect. One of the clearest effects is duplication. The same transportable pressure equipment may be subject to multiple inspections or audits under different regulatory regimes, even where the underlying and technical requirements are fundamentally the same. A common example is equipment approved for both the EU and UK markets carrying the PI and RO mark. While technically similar, these approvals fall under different accreditation scopes. With the ability to operate across multiple regulatory frameworks, HSB can plan hybrid assessments that reduce unnecessary duplication while maintaining full regulatory compliance. Regulatory fragmentation also creates challenges around approval schemes and marking requirements. Equipment that is fully compliant in one jurisdiction may still require additional verification elsewhere. HSB's long-standing experience across global approval regimes allows these issues to be anticipated early and managed proactively. Another significant impact is the delays at borders and ports. Differences in interpretations between authorities can result in equipment being held while compliance is reviewed, directly affecting supply chains and project timelines. HSB's recognised technical credibility and global standing support faster resolution when these situations arise. As a result of this, compliance is often reviewed as an overhead, something that adds cost but little value. In practice, when compliance is managed correctly with proven expertise, recognised accreditation and real regulatory insight, it reduces risk and supports efficient global operations. This is where HSB's experience, competence, and global accreditation footprint delivers tangible value for organisations operating across international markets. Reviewing the challenges of regulatory variation, the question is, how can organisations simplify compliance and gain an advantage? The answer is synergy, and the right partner is key. One client was incurring significant costs for auditors travelling from the EU to the US, thinking they were the only accredited body. But working with HSB reduced their costs significantly while maintaining full compliance. In a global operating environment, synergy in compliance means consistent interpretation of requirements across regions. While regulations may differ in structure or application, the underlying technical principles are often the same, and the overriding principle is to ensure transport of safe equipment. HSB's global expertise, deep technical knowledge, and extensive accreditations allows those principles to be applied consistently, reducing uncertainty and variation from one jurisdiction to another. Synergy also results in fewer redundant inspections. When assessments are planned and executed holistically rather than in isolation, duplications can be avoided. HSB's ability to operate across multiple regulatory frameworks enables combined assessment activities, which reducing downtime, lowering costs, and focusing effort where it adds value the most. Another key benefit is faster market access. When compliance activities are aligned from the outset, approvals can be anticipated rather than reacted to. At the same time, synergy supports a shared global safety baseline. While local requirements still apply, a consistent technical approach underpins operations everywhere. HSB's recognised competence and one of the largest accreditation scopes in the market provide confidence that the baseline are maintained globally, supporting safety, reliability, and regulatory trust. As we've seen, achieving consistency and synergy and compliance depends heavily on the partner you choose. This brings us to the role of one partner with global reach and the distinct advantage HSB provides. HSB brings over 150 years of experience in engineering, inspection, risk management, and compliance. That history matters because it translates into deep technical knowledge, regulatory understanding, and credibility with authorities around the world. Today, HSB operates one of the broadest global approval and accreditation scopes in the transportable pressure equipment sector. This allows HSB to work across multiple regulatory approval schemes, supporting clients with consistent, technically aligned assessments wherever their equipment operates. That capability is backed by hundreds of inspectors and engineers worldwide, providing local presence combined with global coordination. This means clients benefit from on-the-ground expertise while maintaining a consistent technical approach across regions. Crucially, HSB has the ability to act as one single inspection and certification body, rather than managing multiple providers, interfaces, and interpretations. Organisations can work with one trusted partner who understand the full regulatory landscape. This significantly reduces coordination effort, administrative burden, and the risk of misalignment. Up to this point, we focused on complexity largely as a challenge. The next step is to reframe that conversation, because when complexity is navigated effectively, it can also create opportunity. Achieving that requires the right expertise and guidance. A structured and coordinated compliance approach enables streamlined audits, inspections, and scheduling. Rather than reacting to the requirements as they arise, compliance activities can be planned efficiently, reducing disruption and supporting operational needs. This directly supports faster entry into new markets. When regulatory pathways are understood in advance, approvals can be anticipated rather than delayed. HSB's deep regulatory knowledge identify the most efficient approval routes, particularly when entering new jurisdictions or scaling operations internationally. HSB's integrated approach to inspection and certification supports the more predictable outcomes. This becomes especially important as emerging technologies outpace regulation. Clean energy technologies are developing rapidly, often faster than the regulatory infrastructure that supports them. But this raises challenges, such as the limited availability of compliant service equipment, including road-marked equipment, which can delay deployment into the UK market. HSB's technical expertise and early engagement with regulators help bridge these gaps, supporting safe implementation while regulatory frameworks continue to evolve. At the same time, transitional periods create uncertainty as new requirements are introduced alongside existing rules. Managing regulatory change helps organisations understand what applies today, what is changing, and how to plan for the future compliance. In this environment, success depends on expert navigation, not checklists. HSB combines technical judgment, regulatory insight, and global expertise to help organisations move forward with confidence, managing risk while enabling opportunity. Global trade and innovation depends on the ability to move equipment safely and efficiently across borders without unnecessary delay or uncertainty. At the heart of this is harmonisation. While regulations will never be completely identical, alignment across frameworks supports strong safety outcomes and creates the condition for innovation. When requirements are interpreted consistently, organisations can focus on less navigating regulatory barriers and more on delivering products and services to market. This becomes increasingly important as industries evolve and technologies advance, including the transition towards cleaner energy solutions. In these environments, success depends not just on regulations themselves, but on their informed interpretation, sound technical judgment, and effective management of regulatory change. This is where HSB provides clear value. Rather than treating each regulatory board as a separate challenge, HSB supports a unified approach in inspection, certification, and regulatory guidance, and helps organisations navigate multiple regulatory requirements through a single trusted pathway. This reduces uncertainty and supports smoother approvals and helps avoid delays. This approach allows compliance activities to be planned, predictable, and aligned with business objectives. The result is borderless advantage. Fewer disruptions, more consistent compliant outcomes, and the ability to keep products moving efficiently, safely, and globally. Compliance is no longer just a requirement to manage, but a foundation for reliable operations and sustainable growth. As organisations look to expand and operate across increasingly complex regulatory landscapes, the opportunity is clear. Regulatory complexity can be managed with confidence, enabling progress, supporting innovation, and protecting safety across global markets. Thank you very much for attending the webinar today. I hope you found the session useful and insightful. We will be happy to take any questions.
Hello, everyone. And Dean, thank you so much for that great presentation. So we are going to move into our live Q&A session at this time. All right, Dean, I'm going to throw this one over to you to start. You mentioned that transportable pressure equipment being placed on the United Kingdom or Great Britain market after 1/1/2023 needs to bear the row mark. What about legacy PI marked cylinders being used on the market prior to 1/1/2023? Do they need to be row marked during periodic inspection?
Hi everyone, it's Dean Martin here. I'm the Courage of Dangerous Goods Technical Manager at HSB and your presenter for today. To answer the question, there's actually 3 points to this. Point 1, an EU notified body may conduct the periodic inspection and tests in accordance with ADR and RID and Transportable Pressure Equipment Directive. After the periodic inspection and test has been performed, the TPE may continue to be used in the GB and the EU market for the purposes of the UK regulations. It continues to bear the PI mark and does not need to bear the row mark. There's another option where a GB appointed body may conduct the periodic inspection and test in accordance with ADR, RID and the UK regulations without the row mark being affixed. And after the periodic inspection and test, the TPE may continue to be used in GB, but not in the EU. It may still be transported to and from the EU, but for the purposes of the UK regulations and Courage of Dangerous Goods 2009, it continues to be PI marked TPE and does not need to be row marked. And then option 3, a GB appointed body may conduct the periodic inspection and test in accordance with RID ADR and converted the PI mark transportable pressure equipment to UK TPE. If the TPE owner chooses this option, when the next periodic inspection and test is due, the row mark shall be affixed to the transportable pressure equipment. The existing PI mark shall be removed and documentation associated with the PI mark will need to be amended. Periodic inspection and test certificate may optionally state that the TPE has been converted to the UK TPE and not the EU TPE. After the periodic inspection and test, the transportable pressure equipment may be used in the GB but not the EU. It may still be transported to and from the EU in accordance with the regulations RID ADR. Thanks, Katie.
Great. Thank you so much, Dean. All right, I'm going to go with this next one here. All right, Dean, I'll toss it to you to start. How do you typically see US DOT and, forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, the DOT and PHMSA and Transport Canada TG align in practice on mutual recognition of, and again, I apologize if I'm using these acronyms incorrectly, UN ISO pressure receptacles? And what are the most common boundaries where that recognition does not carry over?
Thanks, Katie. I'm going to pass this over to my colleague, Tim, who's our US DOT specialist, who's also on the call. So, Tim, can you get this one, please?
Yes, I can. Hi, Pedro. So I think the answer to your question regarding the most common boundaries where that recognition does not carry over, I think it may be regarding the owner or user of that UN ISO pressure receptacle and maybe not understanding US DOT regulations or Transport Canada's regulations regarding the mutual recognition agreement. So by that not knowing, I think that's what may cause the confusion, or the boundary that, or a barrier that may affect it. And but when you look at US DOT regulations to transport hazardous materials within the United States, it either has to comply, with US DOT regulations or Transport Canada. I think that's pretty clear there. So, so regarding the use, that would be the owner and user of not understanding, Part 173 or 171 of the regulations regarding transportation of using Transport Canada cylinders that meet either UN ISO B340 CSA B341 standard, or for DOT specification or Transport Canada specifications, such as TC3AA cylinders, B339. So if it's in compliance with those two Canadian standards and marked per Transport Canada requirements, it is acceptable for use within the United States. I think I answered your question, but it's really, I think the barrier may be misunderstanding with the owners or users regarding Transport Canada cylinders.
All right. Thank you so much, Tim, for that answer. All right. Looking at the queue here. All right, Dean, I'm going to toss this one over to you to start again. What is the most important point of your presentation that you would like us to take away?
Thanks, Katie. I think the most important point to take away from today's presentation is to try and give the industry and people working within the industry, manufacturers, operators, owners of transportable pressure equipment, trying to give them a good overview and understanding of the pressures and the restrictions by transporting goods around the globe. Give you a key overview of the different regulations, key overview of the different directives that might accompany these, and to give you a high-level overview of where the regulations apply and where they do not. Also, to try and give you a clear overview of how to reduce your current costs. If you are using 1, 2, or even 3 inspection bodies to cover the same type of equipment, might be based because the certain bodies don't have an in-depth accreditation scope, and that HSB can offer services of everything discussed on here, and just being one sole partner covering all your needs. That's a clear overview, Katie. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And our next question that we're going to go to here, Dean, is, can type approvals issued by the EU notified body prior to the Brexit be transferred from the EU notified body to a GB appointed body?
Thanks, Katie. Yes. So type approvals issued by a EU conformity assessment body or a notified body that have been issued prior to the 1st of January 2021 can be transferred to a GB appointed body. And in theory, this may be a paperwork exercise, but the GB appointed body will need to be satisfied with the test data and all of the support and documentation that supports the type approval before issuing a certificate of conformity, as ultimately the GB body then takes legal responsibility for that assessment. So this isn't uncommon. This was a very popular thing to do post-Brexit, because as you can imagine, manufacturers held many different type approvals prior to Brexit, and they wanted to continue to use them post-Brexit. So that was the idea of this getting brought in. And to enable this transfer to take place, information held by the EU notified body in relation to the certificates issued prior to the 1st of Jan 2021 shall be made available to the GB appointed body at the certificate holder's request.
All right, thank you so much for that answer. All right, next one here. Again, I apologize if I'm saying the acronym here wrong, but may the TPED marked UN pressure receptacles be used to transport dangerous goods within the US?
Thanks, Katie. I think this is another one for my colleague, Tim. Tim, would you like to answer this one, please?
Yes. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question again? Mixed up on.
Yeah, sure. So this one is asking, may the, and again, if I'm saying this wrong, I apologize, may the TPED marked UN pressure receptacles be used for transporting dangerous goods within the US?
Okay, so the short answer to that, that's, I guess you could say that's like a yes or no. And the short answer is no for the transportation of goods within the U.S. But it's also a yes. But there's some restrictions to that. So like if you had a TPED marked UN pressure receptacle, you can ship it to the U.S. Full to the final destination, then it'd have to be emptied and then returned back empty. Or it could be shipped to the U.S. empty and then filled and returned back. And that's an example, and that's strictly for the UN pressure receptacles that are at meet TPED, to where they have those limitations, in there. So that's an example of how HSB can help you navigate US DOT regulations, whether it be for receptacles or UN portable tanks, with the different regulations in either US or Europe.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Tim. Okay, next one here. Let me grab this next one out of our queue. All right, this person's asking what substances are covered by UK TPE and TPED 2010-35-UE.
A very good question, and it's one that's often misunderstood. So most people will instinctively say that TPED applies to all Class 2 gases, and while that's largely true, it's not really the complete picture. So if you were to look in Article 2 of the Transportable Pressure Equipment, it states that the directive applies to all Class 2 gases and to substances of other classes listed in Annex 1. And when you read Annex 1, you'll see additional UN numbers. I think there's 6 covering substances in classes 6.1, 8, and 5.1. So the scope is slightly broader than just Class 2 gases. And that distinction can be important really when determining whether TPED conformity assessment and marking requirements apply. That's just to keep in mind that there is an Article 1 in the TPED that also covers different classes as well as Class 2 gases.
All right, thank you so much for that answer, Dean. We've got time for a couple more here, so let's just go with this next one in the queue. Are UN portable tanks covered in TPED 2010-35 UE and UK TPE?
The short answer is no. So UN portable tanks are not within the scope of TPED or the UK TPE regulations. They are designed and constructed and approved under ADR RID, Chapter 6.7. So the regulations for the carriage of dangerous goods by road and rail, Chapter 6.7. However, TPD Article 2 clearly defines the scope as applying to only pressure receptacles, their valves, and other accessories covered by ADR RID Chapter 6.2, and tanks, their valves, and other accessories covered by ADR RID Chapter 6.8. Since UN portable tanks fall into Chapter 6.7, they sit outside of the scope of TPED and UK TPE. So while portable tanks are absolutely transportable pressure equipment, in the broader dangerous goods sense, they are not subject to TPD conformity assessment or PI or rule marking requirements.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Dean, for that answer. This person is asking, may a UN portable tank, and this is sticking with that portable tank topic, may a UN portable tank with a country of approval of Ireland and certified to ADR in accordance with Ireland's rules and regulations be used to transport dangerous goods within the United States?
Thanks, Katie. Again, I think this is a one for Tim. Tim, over to you, please.
Yes. So the answer to that, the short answer is yes. It can be certified to ADR, provided the tank is certified to ADR, that country's regulations, and it meets some additional requirements per US DOT regulations. What that, just a quick, what that means is like the design and manufacture has to be to ASME Section 8 Division 1, or if it's going to be other than Section 8 Division 1 for the design and manufacture, it would need US DOT special permit for that. But yeah, so most part, yes, US DOT designated approval agency is not required for that. So everything is done per the country of approval, per Ireland in this case, and the ADR.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Tim. All right, Dean, I'm going to grab this one here and toss this over to you. So Dean, this one here, why does dual certification for TPED 201035U and UK TP 2009, and then in parentheses, create such a burden?
Thanks, Katie. Although the technical requirements under TPED and UK TPE regulations are nearly identical, the legal frameworks and accreditation scopes for inspection bodies like HSB and other competitors are separate. That means manufacturers need to go through two conformity routes, effectively duplicating design inspections, audits, even when the technical requirements are driven by ADR RID, and they are the same. So Transportable Pressure Equipment Directive and the UK TPE regulations don't have any technical requirements. They absolutely rely on ADR RID for the transport of dangerous goods. So the most beneficial way forward is to select a partner like HSB who are approved for both TPED and UK TPE and the accreditations that go with it. And it just allows us to significantly reduce and duplicate overall costs while maintaining full compliance.
All right. Thank you so much, Dean. All right. So we're going to start to wrap things up here. I know we have a couple of questions that were not answered. So for all those attendees, we will get back to you following today's webinar. So I want to say a huge thank you to our presenter, Dean, today, and for his colleagues for supporting him in some questions here. So everyone, thank you so much for being here with us today.